On this episode of One-on-One, you remember a while back we had a one-on-one with Coach Don Landry, but so many things have transpired since that interview. Only a few people deserve to come up and get that second one-on-one. He's one of them. He's done so much for the community, done so much for every part or aspect of what he's been involved in. Tonight, Coach Don Landry. One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. The move you made after, most coaches are great coaches. They don't always get a chance to be an athletic director or other thing. There's not enough jobs, first of all, to go around. But you kept getting hired for things along in your career that most coaches don't get a chance to do. What do you think they saw in you? You had to be one. I guess you had to be meticulous, analytical, a good business person, a good communicator, because to go from coach to athletic director, you set some new fires that really took hold.
Well, I think my strong points, I've always been extremely well organized. Mm-hmm. In fact, at the dedication of the Legacy Center, several of the players that was on the panel, they all made jokes about how organized I was. And so I think that's been a strength. I was always an idea person. I developed several things that had never been done before. I just had the knack to recognize a need and then to provide leadership to make it happen. Some people get ideas, but they don't follow up on it. Mm-hmm. But I would follow up on it, and there's several things that I started that is still existence. That was a strength. And like I said, I loved all sports, mm-hmm. and that, as an athletic director, that was important. I was always fair to my players, and so, for instance, when I became athletic director, that Title IX was just coming along, mm-hmm. and I never doubted supporting the women also equally, and I learned this from Coach Didier. You treat, as an athletic director, even though you coaching, like he was a baseball coach for a while, he didn't favor baseball. And so that first year when I became athletic director, I was still the coach. Well, I knew better than to just favor basketball right. only. So I was always well aware of, doing the best possible job. Now, we always had budget limitations, so you limited to what you could do. But I think those are some of the traits that got me in advance.
Yeah, let's sort of hop back to the basketball court a little bit. When I think I was in 8th or 9th grade, we had a tournament. Coach Becker was our coach. And we're in Grand Isle for the Grand Isle tournament. We had heard Larry Wilson this, Larry Wilson that. I think he was a senior at that time. I could be wrong. Maybe it's a junior, maybe a senior. But we begged Coach Becker, please let us stay a little longer. We want to see this guy play. And we had never seen him play. We heard about it. There was no Facebook and iPhones and all that. So he says, all right, we'll stay for the first half. It was unbelievable. I mean, I saw a big man shooting way past where any big man ever shot before, his athletic ability, but he was smooth, unbelievably smooth. What was it like coaching him?
Well, let me say a little bit about the recruiting him also. Mm-hmm. Normally, we wouldn't go after a guy that good because we knew how the better players always went to the bigger universities. Mm-hmm. But we made a conscious a conscious effort we were going to go all out to recruit him because we knew his personality. Mm-hmm. He had been in our summer camps, so we knew him personally. We knew that he had no ego. He wasn't impressed by big-time people, and so we knew we had a chance. Now, it was a slim chance. Mm-hmm. So we developed a strategy, and we were going to get to as many games as we could. And so not only did I go as many as I could, attend as many as I could, Jerry Sanders, my assistant, would go. And by then it became a team effort. Coach Didier went a time or two, football assistants, but we had somebody there from Nichols. And in those days you could talk to him right after, and so we'd wait till Larry came out, and there was always at least 5 college coaches there. So we'd wait and just to say, Larry, nice game or whatever, small talk, but we wanted him to know we were there. So one day, I couldn't find anybody. We were on the road, so I wasn't available, and all these other people that had pinch hit for me, none of them available. So I said, I don't want to break the streak. So I went home. I had a thought driving home that night. So I went home and I told my wife, I said, you're going recruiting tomorrow. You're going waiting in line to make sure Larry knows that we're represented. So she got Ann Sanders, who Jerry's wife, and all of our kids, and they went there. And sure enough, they waited in line with these other representatives from colleges, just to say that. So it was a total community effort that we got him.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
So your wife helped recruit Larry Wilson.
Absolutely.
Wow. You were pulling out all the stops.
It was a group effort, and we also we made an effort. Most people kept calling him. Well, we didn't call him a whole lot because we knew that he was a private person, and but we did encourage all of our alumni and fans to write him, and so he got gobs of letters. I've never asked him how many he had, and but. So he knew that the local people wanted him to be at Nichols.
And Dale Brown wanted him bad.
Well, Dale did, and unfortunately, right after his last game, in the Nichols gym, by the way, he committed to LSU. Yeah. And so I was very disappointed, but I called Dale. Dale's a friend of mine, and so I congratulated him, and he really appreciated that. And so later, when Larry realized he had made a mistake, and so he called me and we went visit, and so the next day he signed with us. But so when he called Dale, Dale said, well, don't sign until I get there. So the next morning, I got there early at Central Lafourche, and before Dale got there. And so I greeted Dale and his assistant, and College Temple's dad was with him. I greeted him at the door, and Mr. Temple did not know who I was, so he said, well, are you here helping us recruit Larry Wilson? I said, no, sir, I don't think so. So anyway, I knew what a persuasive guy Dale Brown is, and so he and Ron Perry, Larry's coach, and Larry, they went into one of Coach Perry's office, and I was a nervous wreck, and they were in there a good long time. And so finally, but I was looking right down the hall, and so the door opens, and I'm anxious to see who it is. Well, it was Larry, but he was crossing the hall to go to the band room, and so, but he didn't look up, and so that didn't give me a clue. And so finally, Dale and Coach Perry, all of them came out, and I still didn't know. But then Ron Perry gave me a little okay sign, and so I knew it looked good. So that's the first time I probably breathed easier that whole time. So. And
I interviewed Larry Wilson when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, but the Mamas have a lot to do with the recruiting.
They did, and I think his mother came to every game. Yeah. She'd sit in the student section on the bottom row, right in the at center court, and nobody would tell her that you can't sit there. You know?
Yeah.
But she was at every game. Now, his dad wasn't at every game, but the mom was at every game.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, yeah, I'm thinking that she was a major influence. But I mean,
Mama didn't have to drive far to see her son play.
and Larry was very loyal to everybody, but he knew that very few of his friends from Central Lafourche would get up there to LSU to drive, to see him. So partly that was his friendship with his relationship with his mom and dad, and his relationship with his teammates and friends, that he knew they'd be happier if he came to Nichols.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
Just some of the athletes that you had, I mean, jumpers too. I mean, like Rogers Washington could jump. Richard Polk. I remember him. He was well over the square, the backboard on one occasion.
Larry was the best player I ever had, but Richard Polk might have been the best athlete I ever had. But unfortunately, when he played for us, the rules, you couldn't dunk in those days.
Right.
And so nobody got to see him dunk. And I wouldn't allow him to, anybody, since the rules didn't allow you, they couldn't dunk in practice.
Right.
So that was my rule. So finally, we were playing the last regular season home game of Richard's last year, and he lagged behind at halftime when I was meeting with him. He lagged behind until it was just he and I, in the locker room. And so he said, Coach, he said, I've never been able to dunk. And in those rules, if you dunked, it was a technical foul.
Correct.
And so he said, would it be okay if I dunk? Well, that was against my nature. I didn't like showing
You were like
off.
the John Wooden type.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I thought, here's one of the greatest players I've had. He's never been able to dunk. And we had a lead at that time. We played Mississippi College. And so I said, I reluctantly said, as long as we have a safe lead, I guess it's okay. So I gave him permission. Well, we go out, and I think we had an 11-point lead at the time. Well, all of a sudden, Mississippi College scored. So by then, the lead's down to 7. Well, Richard stole the ball, and I knew what was happening. And so, but I cringed. But so he goes up, and he slams it through. And, like I said, no one had seen dunking, period. And so I always said that's the loudest crowd I've ever heard in Stoford Gym after he dunked. And then people started looking at me to see if I was upset. Well, I couldn't be upset. I wasn't jumping up in joy, for joy, but because I had given him permission. It's just that my interpretation of a safe lead and his were different.
That could have been a 5-point swing.
Well,
he takes the 2 away, you get the tech, they make the tech, they get the ball out of bounds, or at least a 5-point swing.
Right.
Could have been a 2-point game.
Well, but instead it fired up the team, it fired up the crowd, and we ended up winning by a good bit. So it worked out good. And, now some people remember, almost everybody that was there remember that probably more than anything other. One example, they remember that play. And some have a different interpretation, though. They said, after that, Shelby, Hippolyte start dunking, and everybody. Well, they didn't. Richard's the only one that dunked that night because I'd given him permission. But so we all have different versions of the same thing. So
everybody has their own opinion. But watch the documentary the other night on John Wood.
Yeah.
He said Bill Walton tested him twice, and the announcer said, "Well, who won?" He said, "Well, obviously I did because he came back and played the next game."
Yeah.
So, did you have any players that tested you? Because even when you looked at you in the sideline, you weren't flamboyant, or you were very calculated, very analytical, like I said, very mild-mannered. Did anybody ever really test you? Or did you recruit people that wouldn't test you?
Well, I recruited players that wouldn't test me, I guess. You know, I used to tell the staff, if we had doubts about a kid's attitude or behavior or whatever, let's not recruit him, because it's hard enough when you recruit good kids.
Right.
And I think I approved 2 exceptions, and they were both great players, and they each lasted 1 year. And so after that, I would say, what good did it do? We had to work hard to recruit them, but we thought they were, you know, we thought that we could change them. Well, you never change them. And I wasn't the type to be able to, certain coaches are able to coach kind of marginal players. I wasn't one. And so our philosophy was only recruit good players that, you know, that's coachable.
Well, you were more regimented.
Yeah.
And for a regimented person, I guess an undisciplined player will drive a regimented person crazy.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and plus, it was a team game to you.
Absolutely. In fact, little things that I would do, I would never say even in practice, I would never say if they made a shot, I didn't compliment them for shots, because that's what they're supposed to do. But if they picked up a charging foul or if they made a nice pass, I would get real excited, you know, to let them know. And then I would never, after the games, I would never bring up, and I didn't want them to, they would all look at the box sheets after, but I would tell them, you're going to look at how many points you scored, but don't stress that being the most important. You know, look at your other stats. And nobody abused me on that area. They all had the same philosophy that I did.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.